I'm going to play a short from the 1970s that came up in my feed recently. It's Kate Bush talking about her first hit song, Wuthering Heights, released when she was 19 years old. Here she is basically saying that she channeled Catherine, a demonic spirit character from Wuthering Heights, the Emily Bronte novel. Wuthering Heights is a gothic story about Catherine who is presented as a ghost.
Wants to know if you were a bit apprehensive doing your first song in that very high voice, but then have you always sung like that?
No, I haven't. It was really specifically for that song that it was that high because of the subject matter and the fact that I'm playing Kathy and that she was a spirit and it needed some kind of ethereal effect and it seemed to be the best way to do it, to get a high register.
Wants to...
So I assume they may be promoting that on YouTube because there's a new Wuthering Heights movie to be released in February of 2026. As I mentioned before, they tell the same stories repeatedly, especially when it comes to pagan British literary people who write about demons. That's a pattern that I've noticed. And I'll just list a few of the notable film and TV adaptations of Wuthering Heights. There was one in 2011, 2009, 1992, 1970, 1939, 1920. So it was one of the very first silent films. There was also a Mexican, French, Hindu, and Japanese adaptation, and even more than that. But most of the adaptations have been British, with British actors and actresses. The 2026 version will be released on February 13th for Valentine's Day, or Lupercalia. It stars Margot Robbie as Catherine and Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff. Jacob Elordi played Frankenstein in the latest Frankenstein movie. He's Australian from a working-class family, they say, but apparently he is Basque on his father's side, so that's possibly why they favor him for these occult roles. They're describing the new Wuthering Heights movie coming up as gothic, erotic, psychological drama, and I will play the trailer for that now.
Falling.
I can follow you like a dog to the end of the world.
Fall in love.
Are you feeling quite right?
What? Oh, yes, fine.
Do you want me to stop?
So I previously made a video about Kate Bush, who is commander of the Order of the British Empire, the one who had her original hit with Wuthering Heights, and I'm going to play some of that video that I made before now. This video will be about two different British musicians, Kate Bush and Echo and the Bunnymen. Both are in the gothic rock post-punk genre, which emerged in the UK in the late 70s. Gothic rock is inspired by Gothic literature, and these two artists have incorporated themes of the manipulated dead or spirits into their music. Because occultists know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but the spirits, just like the Bible says. And media such as theater, opera, plays, music, paintings, video games, etc., influence the culture spiritually even more than politics. Only it's more subtle. It's witchcraft, The word media is derived from medium. Medium is derived from Latin medius, meaning in between, so that medium became defined as a person claiming to be in contact with the spirits of the dead and to communicate between the dead and the living. So, Kate Bush, a subscriber asked me to cover her, and she was more well-known in the UK. The subscriber said that she is one he used to follow and that her music was a form of spellcasting. Her songs have been covered by many other artists, and apparently she has a cult following. Her song Running Up That Hill is featured in Stranger Things series on Netflix about the Upside Down. But her first release was Wuthering Heights, inspired by the Gothic novel by Emily Bront, the Gothic author who I talked about in my videos Blackwood and Down a Dark Hall. Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights is sung from the perspective of the Wuthering Heights character Catherine Earnshaw, a ghost pleading at Heathcliff's window to be allowed in, and it's described as Gothic romance. This song topped the UK singles charts when she was only 19 years old. I will play a clip of that now.
Out on the winding, windy moors, we'd roll and fall in green. You had a temper like my jealousy, too hard, too greedy. How could you leave me when I needed to possess you? I hated you, I loved you too. Bad dreams in the night. You told me I was going to lose the fight. Leave behind, I walking through the high sea. It's me, Kathy, come home, my so cold. Let me Eve, please. It's me, Kathy, come home, my so cold. Let me
All right, so in another version of the same song, Bush is shown dancing out in the willy windy moors located in Wiltshire, and the red dress that she was wearing in that video has been referenced numerous times in popular culture. So Bush incorporates interpretive dance and mime into her performance art, which is adapted from Japanese no, N-O-H. No meaning talent or skill in Japanese. No is a form of classical Japanese dance drama that has been performed since the 14th century. It's the oldest major theater art that is still regularly performed today. No is based on tales from traditional literature featuring a supernatural being transformed into a human hero who narrates the story. Emotions are conveyed by gestures and masks such as ghosts, women, deities, and demons. It's interesting that no, this form of theater art, is performed by Charita Chin in the occult movie Donnie Darko at the Talent Show. This scene occurs simultaneously as Donnie is getting possessed by Frank, the manipulated dead rabbit, and the music is the same in both scenes. I'll play a little of this now. Okay, so Charita Chin is a character I didn't previously understand from the movie, but now I do. She is a supernatural being transformed into a human who's a type of spirit guide for Donnie during the movie. The premise of the Donnie Darko movie is Jake Gyllenhaal, Donnie, or Donald Darko, diverting the end of the world using a form of time travel. There are allusions to 9/11 and the Trump presidency in that movie. I believe the screenplay was written by the parents of Maggie and Jake Gyllenhaal, who both star in the movie. Their father is Stephen Gyllenhaal, who is an American film director and poet. Stephen Gyllenhaal is the son of Hugh Anders Gyllenhaal, a member of the Gyllenhaal noble family. He is a descendant of the cavalry officer Niles Gunnison Hall, who was ennobled in 1652 by Queen Christina of Sweden. Their mother was also a screenplay writer of Jewish descent. The soundtrack for the movie are mostly British artists, and it's set in a town called Middlesex, which is named for Middlesex, England. I made a video about Donnie Darko, the movie, and all that symbolism. There is a connection to Echo and the Bunnymen and the Donnie Darko movie also, and I'm going to be covering Echo and the Bunnymen in the second part of this video. The Red Shoes is the 7th album released by Kate Bush. Red Shoes is a fairy tale, or demon tale, written by Hans Christian Andersen, the Danish author from the 1800s, who has a lot of statues. Andersen's fairy tales have been translated into more than 125 languages and have become embedded in Western collective consciousness, it says. The most famous fairy tales include The Little Mermaid, The Snow Queen, The Emperor's New Clothes, The Ugly Duckling, The Princess and the Pea, and The Red Shoes. Andersen's stories have inspired ballets, plays, and animated and live-action films. Andersen's father, also named Hans, considered himself related to nobility because his paternal grandfather had told him that. Speculation is that Andersen was an illegitimate son of the Danish king Christian VIII. He was a homosexual. The Red Shoes is a literary fairy tale by Danish poet Hans Christian Andersen. Other tales in the volume include The Elf Mound. The story is about a girl forced to dance continually in her red shoes, which were magic. Her name is Karen, and she finds an executioner and asks him to chop off her feet. So he does this, but she continues to dance, even with her amputated feet inside the shoes. The Red Shoes has been adapted in various media, including film. So now I'm going to read some lyrics sent to me by my subscriber for another Kate Bush song titled Kite. They are, come up and be a kite. Beelzebub is aching in my belly-o. My feet are heavy and I'm rooted in my willy-os. And I want to get away from all these mirror windows. I want to be home. I look at eye level. It isn't good enough. And then I find it out when I take a good look up. There's a hole in the sky with an eyeball calling me. Come up and be a kite and fly a diamond night, a diamond kite. On a diamond flight over the lights, under the moon over the lights. Come up and be a kite. I feel a rush along my body like a bullet. I'm 2D after a push and pull feeling. And I want to get back safe home. I love the homeland dome. I got no limbs. I'm like a feather on the wind. I'm not sure if I want to be up here at all. And I'd like to be back on the ground, but I don't know how to get down. So that sounds like astral travel of a witch, of course, to me. Here's another one of her music videos that I'm going to play a part of. That last bit is almost unbearable. It's almost like she's being possessed, and like they made her do that as a shaming ritual or something. It's very disturbing. But Wuthering Heights, the Gothic classic, published in 1847 by Emily Bronte, is now considered a masterpiece of English literature. It's been noted in reviews as an example of extreme demonic literature. At one point in the novel, Heathcliff is thought to be a vampire. It's been suggested that both he and Catherine are in fact meant to be seen as vampire-like personalities. In the 2011 movie, they do lick blood like the Amalekites, and in the end, Heathcliff ends up digging up Kathy's grave. Kathy's character is identified by critics as a type of gothic demon because she shapeshifts to marry another man, assuming a domestic identity that is contrary to her true nature. Heathcliff is described as the satanic Don Juan with cruel and sadistic behavior due to his trauma as a child. Catherine's relationship with Heathcliff is an example of a woman who falls prey to the demonic instincts of her lover, suffers from violence, and is entangled by a thwarted passion. The possession of Catherine in the story is credited to the fact that she and Heathcliff experienced profound transgenerational trauma and abuse. Much of the story takes place in the Yorkshire moors among giant rock formations. Moors are often used as the setting for Gothic literature, for example, werewolf literature that I've been talking about in other videos. Kathy and Heathcliff's hideaway in the 1970, 1992, and 2011 was partially filmed in the Burman Rocks on Brenham Moor Heath in Yorkshire. Heathcliff gets his name from heath on the moor, and moors are related to high ground heaths, especially in Great Britain. This is a symbolic landscape associated with themes of destruction, decay, and the supernatural, a liminal space where the natural and supernatural worlds blur. In the 18th and 19th centuries, antiquaries theorized that the Brenham Rocks were carved by Druids. In James Macpherson's Fragments of Ancient Poetry, published in 1760, he wrote, "The Britons have had an early communication with the Egyptians and Phoenicians. It's probable they taught their arts and religious ceremonies to the Druids, who would politically conceal them from the people that by means of auguries and divinations. Thus, the rock formations were named Druid's Head, Druid's Writing Desk, Druid's Castle, Druid's Pulpit, Druid's Cave, Druid's Parlor, Druid's Kitchen, Druid's Coffin, Druid's Telescope, and so on. This area is now owned by the National Trust, of course." Macpherson was a Scottish poet educated at the University of Edinburgh. He was also claimed to have discovered an epic poem by Oisin, a legendary bard in Irish mythology. Fingal was one of the characters from that poem, and this is a famous painting of Fingal titled "Fingal Sees the Ghosts of His Ancestors in the Moonlight." Macpherson was a member of Parliament, and he is buried at Westminster Abbey. But the inspiration location for the novel is Pondicherry Penistone Crags. Some of the scenes in the movies are filmed here also. Pondicherry is a crag of gritstone rock that juts out of the moors in Yorkshire. The rocks have a hole in the base of them, which is mentioned in the novel as the Fairy Cave. And Emily Bronte, in real life, was said to have regularly visited this area of the moorland. The name Kirk means church in Scottish, but there are no records of this being a religious site, which would mean that it was used as a prehistoric pagan site. The novel's name refers to the farmhouse on the Yorkshire moors where much of the story takes place, Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte's mother, Maria, was the daughter of a wealthy merchant and property owner in real life who moved to Yorkshire to help her aunt manage the Woodhouse Grove School, which is still a secondary boarding school to this day. And there's also the Bronte House, which is a school for younger children. The school stands on the grounds of the Upperwood House, which is where Charlotte Bronte, Emily's sister, was once governess in real life. And this is the Upperwood House in the current location of that school, Woodgrove School, or Woodhouse Grove School. And it looks a lot like the Blackwoods boarding school from the Gothic movie Down a Dark Hall. It's not the filming location, but they definitely chose a setting that looked like the house in the film from the movie Down a Dark Hall. The name Blackwood, chosen for the boarding school in the movie Down a Dark Hall, has a direct connection to Blackwood magazine through the Gothic author of Wuthering Heights, Emily Bronte. Now I'm going to play part of a video that I made about the movie Down a Dark Hall, featuring a student at the Blackwoods boarding school who's possessed by the spirit of Emily Bronte in that movie. I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to link the full video in the description box. Summarize the Gothic book and movie Down a Dark Hall, which is about a boarding school where girls get intentionally possessed with the spirit of famous historical people who were in the club, is named Blackwood. Blackwood is an ancient, powerful house stemming from the Age of Heroes, ruling Wolfswood in the occult book series, A Song of Fire and Ice, which was adapted into the Game of Thrones series. Blackwood is the school that has a direct connection to Blackwood's magazine, known as MAGA, through the Gothic author of Wuthering Heights. The magazine is a combination of Tory politics, which is conservative politics. Blackwood as a publication was founded by an ancient noble Scottish bloodline family, Blackwood. The Blackwoods are an offshoot of one of the most noble bloodlines in Scotland, the Douglas clan. Both the Douglas and the Blackwoods were married into the Stuart family and often held the real power behind the throne of the Stuart kings. Trump, who is known for MAGA, is also a Stuart, descended from Mary Queen of Scots. He's Scottish on his mother's side and also a MacLeod. I hope that you can see how Trump and U.S. politics are, and always were, connected historically to UK politics and bloodlines. Trump is also a builder who rejects the true cornerstone, just like a Freemason. So now I'm going to play part of another video that I made about Down the Dark Hall and its connection to Emily Bronte. The girls are American, so they channel Americans who are in the club, but who take their inspiration from Europeans that I've covered before. Student Sandy writes sonnets that she says were dictated to her by a woman named Ellis, which is the pen name for Emily Bront. Emily Bront was an English novelist and poet who is best known for the Gothic novel Wuthering Heights, now considered a classic of English literature. Emily Bront was the English-Irish daughter of an Anglican minister, Patrick Bront, who attended Cambridge University and was parson of the Church of England, with his first post as St. Mary Magdalene Church. Bront wrote in the style of Greek tragedies and in Latin. She was influenced by John Milton and Shakespeare. There are echoes of Shakespearean tragedies, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and Hamlet in her Gothic novel Wuthering Heights. Another major source of information for the Bronts was that periodical that her father read, which was Blackwood's magazine, or MAGA. As I mentioned before, Bront's novels were also inspired by Sir Walter Scott and Lord Byron. I've covered both Sir Walter Scott and Lord Byron in other videos. Now more about Emily Bronte and her family. Emily Bronte attended Anglican Church, which is a Druidic church, and had a reputation of being driven by a pagan spirit. So, the house where Maria, Emily's mother, and Emily's father, Patrick Bronte, lived was called the Upperwood House. The father was from an impoverished Irish family, but the mother was from a wealthy family. They married after a brief courtship, and Patrick Bronte himself was described as cold and emotionally distant, prone to violent rages, once cutting up a dress belonging to his wife because he felt it encouraged vanity. And we saw Heathcliff cutting Catherine's dress in the 2026 movie trailer. So it seems, based on this backstory, that Catherine's character may be based on Emily's mother or even Emily herself, who is described as neurotic in real life. In the novel, Catherine's character goes crazy and even hallucinates, which is another sign of demonic possession. Heathcliff's character may be based on Patrick Bronte, Emily's father. Maria, Emily's mother, died at 38, so Emily and her siblings were raised by their father, Patrick. And since generational trauma is a theme in the movie, incest could be an underlying theme of the book Wuthering Heights, because it is implied that Catherine and Heathcliff are half-siblings and grew up together as if they were brother and sister. The Bronte children were encouraged by Patrick to develop their literary talents in real life and to take an interest in politics and current affairs. Patrick Bronte had a large personal library, and the children were encouraged to read from there. Emily's favorites from that library included Aesop's Fables, Arabian Nights, Sir Walter Scott's Tales of a Grandfather, and Blackwood's Magazine. Emily and her siblings were not socialized, but very close to one another in real life. Together, they wrote an epic that included several manuscripts with fantastical magical kingdoms steeped in violence, politics, lust, and betrayal, accompanied by maps and histories written in dozens of miniature books described as having astonishing content. These stories are currently housed in the British Library, and one of the titles was The Spell. The British Museum highlights that, quote, "It is impossible to ignore the imperialist ideology of the 19th century in this fictional history." Speaking of the stories that the children wrote. This is an era when Britain was a global empire, one which was built on expansion and conquests with little regard for native inhabitants. We see exactly this played out in the Brontes' imagined world. So there you have it, another reason Wuthering Heights is a classic in Gothic literature and promoted to this day. A story told over and over is British imperialism. Thanks for listening.